This Audi RS7 was listed at Doug DeMuro's famous auto auction, Cars and Bids, where people with likely no intention of actually purchasing it were quick to surmise that because this car was in need of a brake job and had higher miles, that it was a total piece of junk. Here's a comment informing potential bidders that brake rotors on this car cost $5,000 each, which is entirely not true. And here's another that explains because it needs a brake job, well, it's likely not been maintained. Now, the overall listing is pretty comprehensive. The seller provided dozens of high-quality photos and 4 individual videos showing its condition along with it running. Heck, the seller is the one who mentioned that it needed brakes in the first place, but we all know the old saying that nice guys finish last, and this Audi didn't meet reserve at just $26,000. Now, comment section fodder at the specialty online auctions is nothing new. When I listed my mint Shelby GT350R over at Bring a Trailer, the community immediately recognized it as my car, asking what prior damage it might have had, what was wrong with it, and questioned the health of the engine, even though it was replaced and documented by Ford. This had to have been one of the nicest condition cars I've ever owned, and the final bid went for only $45,000. Today, that same car would be worth closer to $75,000. Even though I regret selling it a bit early, this just goes to show you that if one person can fabricate a single falsehood or negative idea, it can affect a much larger group. But either way, shortly after I saw this RS7 on Cars and Bids, it made its way over to the wholesale auction where the listing wasn't as nearly as detailed, but I figured the seller was pretty motivated, and I was right as I picked it up for just a smidge over its Cars and Bids final offer. And when it showed up, it was overall in really awesome shape. At first, all it seemed to really need was a quick vacuum of the carpets and a little air in the tires. This is beginning to look like a heck of a deal, almost as good as Fanttik's Black Friday sale over at Amazon, where you can pick up their most popular automotive accessories like the X8 tire inflator and V8 vacuum at their lowest prices of the year. Now, the sale does start in a few days, but my audience is getting exclusive access right now with the links down in the description. I use this tire inflator almost weekly because it's so simple. Just twist the fitting on, set your desired pressure, hit start, and when it's done, it'll shut off automatically. And since it's capable of inflating up to 150 psi, it works great on my Super Duty truck tires. And Fanttik's V8 cordless vacuum has incredible suction power in a small package thanks to its brushless motor. This guy comes with a handful of different extensions, which makes it very easy to clean in those small crevices, and it can pick up anything from pet hair to food crumbs. And possibly the greatest gift to the tech fanatic in your life is this E1 electric precision screwdriver kit. It's got a very clever design with 50 bits included and works great on electronics. I've used it to take apart car keys and even used it to repair my old laptop. The tire inflator is known to sell out during the sale, so get a jump on it using the links down in the description, as well as the coupon codes I have down there that's going to assure you the best price of the year on Fanttik's best automotive accessories. Now, the brakes in this Audi are pretty pricey, and that's primarily because of the cost of the rotors. The RS7 in particular has likely one of the most expensive steel rotors put on any production car. They're known as scalloped rotors, and each one costs nearly $700. This price is just online. At the dealer, they cost even more. But I'm not as worried about this as much as I am the dreaded turbo oil screen job. This 4-liter engine was known to have these small strainers in the oil lines running to each turbocharger that would clog up, causing oil starvation and a blown-up turbo. In a worst-case event, failed turbos can cost 5 figures to replace, but even scarier is having this guy do the job in the most disorganized way possible right after he eats, leaving crumbs in the brand new strainers and clogging them right off the bat for the next prospective owner. This job is difficult and time-consuming, as everything sitting on top of the engine, including both turbos, have to come off, which means it's really expensive if you have the dealer do it. But by some stroke of luck, right around the same time I bought this car, Audi issued a recall for this turbo screen problem, which means even though this car has a lot of miles, the dealer will fix it totally free, and at the same time they'll inspect the turbochargers. If there's any wear, they replace them for free, and they even extend the warranties on both turbos in case of a future failure. Now, between scheduling this recall and actually having the job done, the dealership was awesome and everything was very efficient, and even though this job was done on Audi's dime, it didn't stop the dealer from offering an over $4,000 of additional service work to our RS7. In a moment, we'll go through what the dealer recommended and see if it's really necessary. Now, when I checked the car in at the dealer, the service advisor grabbed the keys, got an odometer reading, and came back to tell me that there were 2 messages on the dashboard. Not 2 warning lights, just 2 messages. The first message was inspection due. In the world of Volkswagen Audi, that simply means you need an oil change. The second one was for the adaptive cruise control, which had been deactivated because something is not working in the system. Now the good news was that my recall work included a new oil change. So he said he could reset that oil change reminder light for just 80 bucks. And if I wanted them to figure out what was wrong with our cruise control, well, that would be an additional $200 in diagnostic fees. And look, we all know that these European cars are very expensive to get worked on at the dealer. But what I find egregious is that we can't reset our own oil change lights anymore. On Audis and Volkswagens, you need a scan tool to do it. Today, we're going to be able to diagnose and fix what's wrong, as well as reset our lights for a fraction of what the dealership wants just to diagnose it. But first, we really should check out how bad our rear brakes really are. We got the RS7 on jack stands. We got the rear wheels off, and it's really kind of hard to surprise me anymore when you see funny stuff from the auction. First off, there's what the brake pads look like. They're pretty well gone. It'll be interesting to actually get the pad out of the caliper here so we can see if there was just a hair of pad material left, because these rotors, they don't look nearly as bad as the E55 AMG we did recently, but they are grooved a little bit here. Now, this is the funny part. I was wondering why in the heck there was no brake warning on the dashboard, because all of these modern cars, especially the expensive ones, they have brake pad wear sensors. You can see right where the sensor sits inside there. Someone plucked it out and they just joined the two wires together. To show you how this works, I have a brand new brake pad and a new wear sensor, and it's really simple. This sensor just slots in to the top of the pad, so it'll really only stick out about that much. And as your pad wears down and gets to about that area, the face of the rotor is going to start wearing right on the sensor where this wire is. Now, taking a closer look at the wiring for the sensor, it looks like we have two really small gauge wires, but actually it's just one wire that comes out either end going to each of these pins. And as your rotor wears on the face of this sensor, it will break that wire, causing resistance. And as soon as there's any resistance in this line, it sends a signal to your car to let you know your brake pads have to be replaced. I would guess the sensor was triggered at one point, sending that warning light on the dash, in which one of the previous owners then took the car into the dealer or a service center. And when they found out how much a rear brake job would be, well, they figured this might just be a cheaper solution, especially since they got rid of the car. But for us, this is no big deal. We already knew we had to do these brakes. A replacement sensor is only $5, and you got to do them anyway when you do a brake job. Before we start messing with our brakes at all, we have to go into the service function of our tool here, and we have to take off or disable the electric parking brake. That way we can actually remove it. Otherwise, it will clamp down so hard we won't be able to take off our rear calipers. We're going to hit OK. And we're going to do number one, start a brake pad change. We're going to hit 1. And now it says the brake pads are fully open. When we're done, we're going to have to go and re-enable that electric parking brake. But now we can start taking things apart. Now, I just picked this scan tool up over at Amazon. It's called a TopScan, and it connects to your phone via its app and Bluetooth. And it only costs $60. But the insane thing about it is that it does everything my $900 diagnostic tablet does. But again, for $60. I've used a ton of these different Bluetooth style scanners, and generally they're pretty limited in function. This one seems to have it all for every make and model, and so I'm really hopeful that this is the way forward, because it lets us work on our cars the way we should. I'm going to go ahead and drop an Amazon link to it down in the description box. For $60, you got to check it out. Come on, that's not like a hair of pad material right there.
That's like almost nothing.
Almost nothing. Almost, though. Almost nothing is still something.
Yeah, it looks like almost nothing to me.
I'll take almost nothing. Here's the part where I try and save a lot of money. Now, this idea seemed a lot better in my head, but after looking at the condition of these rotors and pads, it might not be the ideal car for this brake rotor hone. I picked this up a long time ago, and when I saw the price of these brake rotors, I figured this would be the perfect tool to try it out on. Now, if this doesn't work out, I'll end up just buying a new set of rotors, but if it does, it's going to save us a ton of money. And let's face it, dealerships no longer sell a rotor turning or cutting service anymore, because it's much cheaper and it's more profitable for them to just install new rotors. But for us, it's much cheaper and easier to use this. So let's give it a shot. We're going to try and turn our brake hub into a lathe by just running the car. It's going to be really interesting because I have to hit the brake pedal to start the car. Let's see what happens here. All right, there it's on, okay? We're gonna turn off our stability control so it doesn't mess up. So it's off completely. I'm gonna stick it in reverse. All right, here we go. All right, at this point, I just have to say, do not do this. Don't try this. Don't even think of doing this. I'm not saying that it won't work. I'm just giving you the disclaimer that you don't want to do this. You should just go to the dealer and spend over $3,000 for just 2 of your 4 brakes, or maybe you should just spend $1,400 for both new rotors and install them yourself. Either way, I just have to say, do not do this, even though this tool is called a brake rotor hone and they sell it at most local auto parts stores. And every time I do a brake job, the comment section either calls me a pad slapper, or in the case I actually do replace my rotors, they say I'm throwing away money by not reusing my rotors. So, you know, just don't do this. Here's everything after our fresh pads and our rotor honing, and while it looks very similar to the way it did before, when you run your finger across the rotor, it feels much smoother, and you don't feel those grooves like it had before. And we even have nice scoring all around the rotor, which is something you want. Even new rotors come out of the box roughed up because you want your brake pad to be able to grip to them. And that hone was made specifically for the steel on our brake rotors. So I'm not too worried about the job that the hone did. I'm just worried about the overall condition of these rotors going forward. If they'll last one more pad cycle. That's where I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Is this a good solution to save a good amount of money on our Audi brake job, or are we kidding ourselves and going to need a new set of rotors in short order? Definitely let me know down below. With our brakes all assembled, it's time we bleed them, which is an additional service that the dealership recommended. We're actually going to be using a tool that is very similar to what the dealer uses. With this, makes the job super quick and simple. Now, I've already found the cap that fits our brake fluid reservoir the best. Now we'll take this fitting and just slip it over the cap there, and this fitting leads to this giant pressurized tank. Now, before we send pressure to the tank, we're just going to go ahead and load it with brake fluid, lock up the chamber here. Now we're going to close our valve on the back, and we're going to send a little bit of pressure, and we want to monitor this carefully because we don't want to send too much pressure to the tank. We only need right about there. That's pretty good. 30 psi is all right. That should be fine, and this should work throughout the duration of this job. What's actually really cool about this tool is you can pre-pressurize it with fluid in it, like right now, and then take it on the go if you had to do like a brake bleed at your friend's house. I'm going to start with the passenger side rear because it's the farthest away from the reservoir. We'll put our wrench in place, and then we've got this little bottle here. This just fits right over our bleeder. And when we open it up, we'll just repeat this same thing on all 4 corners. After doing just the 2 rear brakes, we went down from like 34 to 30, so we still have plenty of pressure left to finish the fronts. With the wheels off, we can see how good a condition the pads and the rotors are here in the front. In the listing, some people were saying it needed all 4 rotors done. Clearly, it doesn't need the fronts. These will last a long while, but either way, that's a good thing because the fronts are even more expensive than the rears. Here's all the old brake fluid out of the Audi. I'm betting that there is more in this canister than the entire capacity of the car. So this is a true flush. The dealership wants $300 for this service, but the brake fluid itself only costs $25. Considering you got to pull all the wheels off, put them back on, it's not all that expensive for dealership standards. However, if you're doing your own brakes like we did anyway and your wheels are coming off, it's not much more work. You could do it yourself for $25 in brake fluid. And if you wanted to buy the special tool that I used, it's under $100. So for the price of the tool plus your brake fluid, you're still less than half of what the dealership charges. Now I want to try and get our adaptive cruise functions back online. This car has a ton of cool tech. There's a camera and a sensor right there behind the rear view mirror. If you look at the front grille, there's a forward-facing camera here, and then a night vision camera, and then where your fog lamps would normally sit, they look like kind of tinted fog lamps. Those are actually our radar cruise sensors right there. And I already went and pulled up our codes on the scan tool and then looked at some of the live data. And this sensor right here on the passenger side is the one that seems to be out of whack. Gotta be really gentle here, but I already started just working this out. It should just pop. Yep, that's nice. Perfect. So there's our sensor, and there's two adjustment screws, one up top and one down below. One of them moves it up and down, and one of them moves it left to right. Now this job is super simple as long as you have a guide on how to do it and all the tolerances at where the sensor is supposed to sit. But when you search calibrate Audi adaptive cruise, instructions come right up and they're very easy to follow. It tells you exactly what buttons to hit in your scan tool in order to see where your sensor is sitting. We're currently a little bit over a degree off, which is enough to shut down all of our adaptive cruise functions, but with the twist of a screw, it should put things back in spec. I read in multiple places online that the dealerships want anywhere between $800 and $1,200 just to calibrate these. You're about to see how simple it is, but imagine they just wanted $200 to tell us it needed to be calibrated. The amount is insane. It doesn't match the amount of labor necessary here. All the tutorials I read said that we need to grab a 3mm socket and just put it over this screw, turn it, and that will actually shift the sensor a little bit. The problem is I don't have a 3mm socket. I looked locally, not a single store sells one. I looked online. They're impossible to find. I think Audi does have a special tool for that, but luckily someone had mentioned that these screw heads are actually just Torx bits, which I'm showing you here using my scope camera. There it is. So I've got my really low profile ratchet here, and it's simple enough just to reach back here and twist it. Now I've already done that, and I moved it just a smidge. And when I did, the tolerances seemed to come right back to where we needed them. Now, as far as I understand, this might change on our initial drives, and we might have to calibrate it again. So for right now, I'll leave this grill off. But once we reset and adapt all the systems, the cruise control should work again. Before we start this car up, test out our brakes and also our adaptive cruise control, we're just going to reset that inspection light really quick. You basically just find where it tells you, let's try this auto oil reset. All right, it says that it was successfully reset. As simple as that. They wanted $80 at the dealership to do what we just did in about 30 seconds. All right, we're going to turn this on now, and hopefully all of our warning messages have gone away. I'm not going fast enough for adaptive cruise, but if we flick it on right here and then hit the button on, you can see it just turned on in the corner there. It's telling me the distance it will keep right there. I can set it further back or closer up. We'll go ahead and shut them off, but our adaptive cruise control functions are all back and working. Now the brakes, they feel really good, but to be honest, they felt really good when I got the car. Since there was no brake pad warning light, I never paid much attention to them after probably putting a couple of 100 miles on this car, which is totally my fault. I read all those comments about this car needing a brake job, so I should have checked it the second I got the car. But having done this brake job, I think what's going on here is that those rear calipers, while they look really pretty, they're just single piston. So the majority of the brake work being done here is up front, which is where you need it since this is a front engine car. The front brakes are massive. If we had the same thing going on in the front that we did in the rear, I wouldn't have even questioned it. I would have definitely put new rotors on it. But since this is in the rear, it'll be interesting to see how it holds up. So far, no strange noises or anything like that. What would an RS7 video be without one pull? I'll stick it in dynamic mode here. We'll shift our own gears and have a little bit of fun. Three, two, one. Remember when Volkswagen was the people's car? It's now turned into the boardroom's car, a car that was made to maximize profits at the service center without really changing a lot of the core functions of your typical automobile. You know, the way we do a brake job has been the same for decades, and it's the same on this, but you need to jailbreak your own car first, and that's why you got to take back control of your car with things like the scan tool we use throughout the repair process of this car. Right here I have the dealership recommended service work for this Audi. I declined all these jobs and just show you why they're probably basing a lot of these services more so on just the upsell model than actually on the fact that your car might or might not need these things. We'll start off with the thing it desperately needed, and that was the rear brakes. They wanted $3,107. Again, just for the rears. We're not talking about all four corners here. And when you consider that you can get the rotors online for about $700 a piece, that means they're likely around $900 a piece at the dealership. The pads are cheap. I bought name brand ones for around $40. Again, at the dealership, they're going to cost you more. But even if you have $2,000 in parts for this job at the dealer, the labor at $1,100 is a considerable amount for just two corners of the car. I recommend you do your own brake jobs, maybe not in the way we did this one here, but it's something that you can watch a few videos on and get the hang of very simply. The second one goes along with the brake job. It's the brake fluid exchange. They actually wanted $250 for this, and a brake fluid exchange in general for $250 isn't bad. If you got to take all four wheels off, put them all back on, dispose of the brake fluid when you're done. But if you're doing your own brakes, you're going to do your own brake fluid exchange. Just have someone sit in the driver's seat and pump that pedal while you collect the fluid. It's not hard at all, and it's going to save you a couple $100. The next one is my favorite on the list. It's only $292 for a coolant flush. And I say only because on these RS7s, everything is so packed tight in that engine bay, you have to put this car in what Audi calls a service mode. You have to take the whole front end off, pull everything forward. I mean, you basically have to do a lot of the stuff they had to do before they did the turbo strainers. But get this, they had to refill that coolant during the turbo strainer recall because, well, you have to remove the lower radiator hose to gain access to all this stuff. They actually have coolant itemized in the list here in our recall receipt. If I would have paid for that service, would they have done the coolant job twice on it? The next few here are just clear upsells. The first one is a foam evaporator cleaning service. That's where they shoot a dry foam down your AC vents, which cleans the evaporator. In the case that you might have a funny smell or something, you could buy this can of foam yourself at the auto parts store for like $20 and do it yourself, but you do that when your car is actually stinky. This one is in really nice shape inside, doesn't smell like anything, so there's no necessity to do that. The next recommended job was a fuel induction service for $262. So I wrote a friend of mine that is a tech at a big franchise dealer, he'll remain anonymous for this story, and said, hey, what constitutes a fuel induction service at your dealer? And he wrote back, we don't actually do them, it's just a cash grab. Now, I'm thinking he meant that we don't even offer them at our dealer because they don't do anything. As far as I understand, a lot of them will put a bottle of fuel injector cleaner in your gas tank, or they'll do a seafoam treatment like just shooting some cleaner or solvent in your intake. But otherwise, that's an $8 can of stuff. You could do this at home. I would always recommend you pass on that sort of stuff. The last one is for a single rear tire, and I'm really surprised because the two rear tires, they match and they've got about equal tread. I'm just surprised they didn't try and offer me two rear tires. They want about $500 for a single tire. I'll get them both done at the same time when they need it. Right now, they're just not really all that bad. So I think this was a relatively good deal. A facelifted Audi RS7, even though it has high miles at 120,000, it seems to be pretty well taken care of. It's very clean. It's got this pretty desirable black Panther color, which is like a black with a purple color shift on. It's really nice in the sun. I'm hesitant to tell you guys this because when I go to sell it, nobody ever wants to pay me even what I paid for it, but I paid a little bit, just a smidge under $30,000 for it, and we didn't hardly spend any money servicing it just now. The dealership took care of that for me, and I'm greatly appreciative of that. Thank you very much, Audi. Great car, great service. I highly recommend it. If you're not already following me on Instagram, where I post a lot of the sneak previews of the cars that we work on before they go live on the channel, all you got to do is find me here or hit that link down in the description. If you feel like you learned something in this video, give it a huge like, and I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today. I'll catch you very soon.